From Los Angeles, the Carter Report presents Amazing Discoveries Worldwide Lectures with John Carter. During these fact-filled presentations that have astounded millions around the world, you'll see the wonders of ancient Egypt and meet Hatshepsut, the bearded queen. You'll visit Petra, the fabled city carved out of a red mountain, Jerusalem, the fated city destroyed by the hordes of Rome, Karnak, the breathtaking temple of gods, demons, and pharaohs, and Babylon, city of God King Nebuchadnezzar. You'll hear the voice of prophecy as it echoes and thunders down the corridor of time, and discover the identity of the real Antichrist. All this and much, much more. Prepare now for a life-changing experience with John Carter as he presents Amazing Discoveries Worldwide Lectures.
Welcome to every one of you, and thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the second part of the program, second part of the series, I should say. This is the second program, Fantastic Finds in Ancient Lands, digging up the remains of a glorious past. Do the Bible and the spade agree? A girl stayed behind after Dr. Graham had given a talk at a university, and she asked a question. A lot of students were just hanging around, and she asked the question, "Dr. Graham, who am I?" Everybody laughed. Everybody knows who they are, don't they? Who am I? Folks thought it was funny. Dr. Graham didn't think it was funny because she asked the most important question that a person can ask. Who am I? Or what am I? I've had the privilege of talking to more than 3 million Russians face to face in big halls. They call them over there palaces of sport, huge big places. During the days of the communists, they tried to get rid of all the churches and the synagogues and so forth. And people over there were told by the authorities, "Hey, you're just a machine. You're not even an animal. Your feelings don't really count." And when I've spoken to these people, many of them university professors have come to me and they've said, "We've been told we're not even animals. We're simply machines. And the state is everything." Now, folks, talked about this last night. I'm just going to repeat it a little bit now. 3 big questions you've got to know, and you've got to answer them to your own satisfaction. Where did I come from? Hey, where did I come from? If I came on the planet by blind chance, you know what's going to happen to me? I'm going to exit by blind chance too. And why am I here? Is there any purpose in my living? Why am I here? And where am I going? Did you know that in these United States of America, since this tremendous crisis, this meltdown on Wall Street, suicide among white females, suicide, the rates are up 300%. Why am I here? Where am I going? Germany had a famous philosopher. He was a great pessimist. I guess you shouldn't be smiling when you're saying the word pessimist. But we're not pessimists in these meetings. But Schopenhauer, Professor Schopenhauer, was a profound pessimist. He got so full of despair that he never went home one night. He went to a park and lay out on the park bench like a derelict. So he's lying on the park bench. That's not Dr. Schopenhauer, it's just a picture we got. But he looks sort of melancholy there, you know. And the park attendant in the morning wanted to get rid of this guy. So he went and shook him by the shoulder and he said, "Who are you?" And Schopenhauer woke up and looked at him with bleary eyes and he said, "I wish to God I knew. I wish to God I knew." A lot of people wished, they don't say necessarily to God, but they wished they knew who they were, where they came from, why they're here, and where they're going. Why on earth talk about archaeology? Why on earth take people to places where there are mummies and pyramids and dusty, dead old buildings? What has that got to do with who I am? Now let me tell you why. This book here, this book, after you come to 10 of these programs, this book claims to have the answers. A lot of people believe it, a lot of people don't believe it. But it tells us where we came from. It tells us why we are here. It has the cure for the sickness of meaninglessness. You know what they say the greatest sickness of our times is? The greatest sickness in Russia? The greatest sickness now in America? Certainly the greatest sickness in Australia, where they've got among young people a high suicide rate, even though it's an affluent society. The greatest sickness is not heart disease. Spoke to a buddy of mine today, Jim Gilly. He's just a great friend of mine. He's just had a huge surgery on his heart. They had to open up the aorta and put a valve in there. They had to work on that. Then they gave him a triple or a quadruple or something bypass. And, and I was talking to him on the phone today. He's just a great friend. He's recovering, and pray God he's going to be okay. He will be. Had the operation just 3 weeks ago, and he's feeling pretty sore and pretty weary, as you could imagine. But that's not the greatest sickness. Diabetes is a big problem here in this country. And we can tell you how pretty much you'll never get diabetes, because there are secrets to that too. Heart disease, cancer, that's not the biggest sickness. The biggest sickness in America and the biggest sickness in the world is the sickness, the philosophers tell us, of meaninglessness. Life's got no meaning. And so people become filled with despair. Why on earth do we get bogged down in the dust of archaeology? Now tonight I'm going to take you to some of the most wonderful old cities of the ancient world. But why do we go there? Because in those cities we find evidence for a thinking person to believe. Now listen, I don't think the same as most people do. I don't believe in belief in belief. People say faith and scientific evidence are divorced and they'll never come together. So you got fact over here and you got faith over here, and there is a warfare between the two. I say that's baloney. I want to believe the truth. I want to believe, but I don't want to believe a bunch of lies simply because it's got to make me feel fuzzy and warm all over. Because that's the greatest sickness of them all. That's the greatest despair, to believe something simply because you want to believe it, because it's going to make you feel good. No, I don't want to do this. Tonight I'm going to tell you how we can find meaning in our lives, how we can find purpose, satisfaction, and peace and fulfillment, and how at the end of these lectures, at the end of the series, you will be a transformed person. This is not hype, but you will be a transformed person. And you will stand tall and you will say, hey, I know where I came from, and I know why I am here, and I know where I am going. Does that interest you at all? Hey, come and talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me loud. If you want to talk to me in Spanish, talk to me in Spanish. That's fine. I just won't understand you. All right, talk to me in Spanish. Talk louder in Spanish. I have no idea what you're saying, but it sounds wonderful. Sounds great. Sounds good. Now here is a statement. Here it comes. Listen to this. If genuine prophecy exists, then the main issues of life are solved. Think of this. If there is such a thing as genuine prophecy, the ability to see into the future. And if it can be proven from past events, here is ultimate proof that there must be a God who is interested in us. Therefore, if that is so, life would have meaning. Tonight, I'm going to show you prophecies from the dust heaps of ancient cities. Going to take you tonight to Petra. Used to be a big city. It was lost for 1,000 years. Why was this great city of Petra? The poet Burgon, the British poet, said, "Match you this wonder save an eastern clime, a rose-red city, half as old as time." Why was it lost? What was the prophecy? Nineveh, the great capital of the vast Assyrian super empire. Who were these fierce kings? What about the prophecy about Nineveh? Why was Nineveh destroyed? Is the Bible a collection of pious myths? Or, to put it frankly, is it simply a bunch of lies? Or is it the truth? Tyre, the city that was right on the edge of the Mediterranean. What amazing prophecy caused the city to be buried under the sea? Can you imagine a city buried under the sea? What amazing supernatural event could cause a city to be buried under the sea? And recently, I traveled to Damascus and hired a motor car and drove up through the hot desert, and I went up there to Ebla, which is at the site that is called Tel Mardik. What discoveries have influenced scholars to rethink their ideas about the origin of the Bible from this place called Ebla? Now, what I want to do now is come over here to the blackboard, and I want to put up a map, and I want to show you where we plan to go. Here we have the Mediterranean coast, and down here we have, as you all know, the fabulous land of the God Kings. And this is the delta. Right here we have the pyramids, and we talked about that last night. And we talked about Pi-Ramesses, and where the children of Israel came out of Pi-Ramesses. And we have discovered Pi-Ramesses. It is not the city of Tanis, because everything from Pi-Ramesses was taken to Tanis, and we showed this to you last night. Up here we have the little beautiful Sea of Galilee and the Jordan River, and down here we have the Dead Sea, and most likely in this vicinity we have the old cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, up here on the coast is the city of Tyre. Once, ladies and gentlemen, it was the New York of the ancient world, a great bustling metropolis. There we have the city of Damascus. That is believed by many to be the oldest continuously inhabited city on the face of the earth. And north of Damascus, and we've got to go to these places first, we have the mound which is called Tel Mardik, where they discovered the city of Ebla. Then we come over here to the Persian Gulf. And here we have the land of the true rivers that is called Mesopotamia. That means the land between the two rivers. Called today, what is its name today? This is Iraq. This is Iraq. And there we have the city of Babylon, Oh, what a great city that is. That city, my friend, still influences modern civilization today. Many of our customs are not ours. They came from Babylon. And then up further north, we have the city of Nineveh, made famous by the story of Jonah and the whale. And just a little distance from Nineveh, we have the city of Nimrud, that is named after the great dictator of the ancient world. This city is called in the Bible by the term Kala. And tonight we plan to take you to these places so that you and I will discover that there are supernatural forces, that there are prophecies that speak and tell us there must be a God. The Assyrians, they were fierce, they were bloodthirsty, they were the super power of the 8th and the 9th centuries. In fact, they ruled from about 900 to 612 BC, to be more precise. The ancient Assyrians were noted for their ferocious cruelty. In the Bible, they are famous as the oppressors of the people of Israel. They are mentioned time after time in the Bible. There is the testimony of the famous Ashurnasirpal II, who boasted of having rebellious chieftains impaled on stakes. Well, that's how they did it. Dismembered and skinned alive. How charming they were. They would skin their victims alive. No wonder Jonah the prophet said, I do not want to go to Nineveh. Ashurnasirpal II made Nimrud, or the biblical Kala, his capital. It was a fortress city on the banks of the Tigris. There you have the river Euphrates, and there you have the Tigris. They had there a vast ziggurat, and I have walked over the foundations of that old ziggurat. I love the people of Iraq, some of whom are the descendants of the Assyrians. Baghdad was, when I went there, a beautiful city on the banks of the great river. I had some problems there. I was arrested by Saddam for taking pictures of his palace, or one of his palaces. We had no idea. We simply put a camera out the window and were taking pictures, and there came a knock on the door, and when we opened the door, it appeared to be the whole of the Iraqi army in the corridor. But they were okay to us, because even though they kept me under house arrest for a couple of days, I have lived to tell the tale. But I went to this Muslim center because I was on my way up north, and I wanted to go to Nimrud, or the biblical Kala. The road up north is a wild road. I've had some amazing experiences. I have been very, very blessed. We stopped the car because of necessity, and as we got out of the car and walked off into the scrub, I noticed that my feet, at least, were sinking down into the sand. And the stuff was covering our shoes. You know what it was? Oil. oil. As we flew into Kuwait, I looked out of the plane window. I said, they got lakes here. But why are they black? Black gold. No wonder the nations, my friend, are interested in the Middle East. It's not because they just like the people or because they want to import the sand. I met there a famous Iraqi archaeologist. I hope he is still alive today. Musayhim Mahmud Hassan. He told me of this wonderful discovery. Archaeologists had been digging there for 120 or 130 years. They had sifted through the sand. And then they came upon what appeared to be like a pipe sticking up from the nether world, covered by sand. And they dug around it and they discovered something wonderful. They discovered a tomb. How had the other archaeologists, the British archaeologists, 100 years ago, how had they missed it? And he told me the story that in the tomb there was a chest. And as they opened up the chest and pried it open, they held up a light that flashed down into the contents. And he said, momentarily, he was smitten with blindness because of the glare from the gold. Oh, he had stumbled upon something quite exciting and amazing. Listen. He had discovered the tomb of the daughter of the great Sargon of the Bible. Oh, but we've been told that the Bible is full of myths. Well, Sargon is not a myth, and neither was his daughter. The tomb of the daughter of Sargon the Great, Isaiah chapter 20, verse 1. The tomb of the wife of the great Ashurnasirpal himself. And then all of this wonderful jewelry. When I got back, the LA Times was so interested, they came out to my home and published all this in full spread in the Los Angeles Times. Exquisite jewelry. We discovered that not only were they cruel barbarians, but they were cruel barbarians who liked jewelry. Heaps and heaps of beautiful, exquisite jewelry. But something else. Right in this very area, they discovered what looked like an obelisk, an inscription. There it is. It's worth more than the jewelry. It is a picture of the great Assyrian warlord Shalmaneser the Great, the man who made the world tremble. And there, kneeling before him, is a person who is mentioned in the Bible as a king of Israel. And his name in the Bible is Jehu. And when the Bible identified him, they said, who is this person coming? And they looked out and said, he's coming in a chariot. And he's coming furiously. He's driving so fast. And they said, there's only one person who drives like that. It is Jehu. He drives like a madman. He'd be okay here in Los Angeles on the 101 freeway that I'm going to drive tonight to Thousand Oaks. But it's better than the 405 or the 210 or the 210. Yeah. I have a few idiosyncrasies. I call it the 101 and the 405. And people say, what's wrong with you? I say, well, that's just written up everywhere like that. Have a look, my friend, there he is. You see, they say to me, can a person really believe the stories of the Bible? I say, if you don't want to believe them, then believe the inscriptions. Because the inscriptions tell the same story. I am absolutely convinced that the evidence supports the historical reliability of the Scriptures. Now, there was Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrians. It was a vast and marvelous city. And there in this very area, they discovered something which sort of shook up the world for a little while. It was an inscription by the great king Sennacherib. It's a prison. I want you to see it there. It's written in a very, very strange ancient writing. It is called the cuneiform. And Sennacherib wrote down a story, because when you read the Bible, you read the book of Kings and you read the book of Isaiah, it talks about Sennacherib and all the hordes of the Assyrians coming up and surrounding Jerusalem. You can read this in the Bible. It's a great drama of how Sennacherib said, we're going to grind this city into the ground. It's written down in the Bible. And right there, you can see it in the cuneiform. Sennacherib says, Hezekiah, that's the king of Jerusalem, Hezekiah, like a bird in a cage, I have shut up in Jerusalem. It's not a fairy tale. It's not make-believe. It's absolutely true. I've said it to the Russians. I say it to the people who live in the city of the angels. I say it to the people who are watching the telecast in Great Britain and in Australia and around the world. I say it to you. If this book is true, if we have scientific evidence to believe this book, then you and I can start to stand tall again, because this book tells me where I came from, why I am here, and where I'm going. Every person here tonight, you may not feel it, but every person here tonight is distinct and glorious. How does that make you feel? Give it to me in Spanish. Oh, okay. Give it to me in English. Give it to me in Russian. Listen, if this book is true, it tells me I'm a child of God. I don't want to believe this book unless I know it's true. But the evidence from archaeology tells me the book is true. I believe it. I believe it. Now the voice of prophecy. So here you've got the great city of Nineveh, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. Like the nations of today, they said, you know, we're going to be safe forever. Nothing's going to change us. And then there came along a Bible prophet, and because of the terrible cruelty of the Assyrians, the Bible prophet said these words about this city. And I'm going to take a moment with your permission, and I'm going to turn over here to the prophet, and I'm going to turn to his words in Zephaniah. Here it comes. I'm getting close. I'm getting hot. Zephaniah, here it is, chapter 2 and verse 13. It says, this was written a long time before the city was overthrown. It says, he will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, leaving Nineveh utterly desolate and dry as the desert. And I want you to see this on the screen again. I want you to see Nineveh as it really is today. There are the actual walls of Nineveh. And the place was so lost that when Alexander came along hundreds of years later, he said to his lords and his scholars, what is the meaning of these ruins? They didn't even know the name of the city. Nineveh was lost for 2,500 years because the Bible prophet said the city was going to be completely destroyed. So I believe that the prophecies of the Bible show to me that there's a God in heaven And this God tells me that I am distinct and glorious because I am made in his image. But even though that's amazing, it's not as amazing as the prophecy about Tyre. Now, this is the road down to Tyre. But the prophecy about Tyre it's just amazing. It's incredible. So here we've got the coast. There we got it, the Mediterranean. There was the old city of Tyre. The Bible prophet came along and said that this city, that was the New York of the ancient world, would actually be thrown into the ocean. Now, I want to say to the skeptic who's watching the telecast, I want to say to any person here, sitting here in this auditorium tonight, and you say, I don't believe the Bible, I don't believe in God. I want to say to you tonight, please, just for a little bit, look at the evidence and ask yourself the question, what chance is there of this happening by itself? Would you please do that for me? I'm going to turn over here to Ezekiel, and I'm going to turn to chapter 26 and verses 4 and 5, and I'm going to read you the prophecy about the New York of the ancient world, the great city of Tyre. Here it is. They will destroy the walls of Tyre and pull down her towers. I will scrape away her rubble and make her a bare rock. Out in the sea, she'll become a place to spread fish nets. Hey, people are going to spread fish nets out in the middle of the sea. I turn over the page. It says this. They will plunder your wealth and loot your merchandise. They will break down your walls and demolish your fine houses and throw your stones, timber, and rubble into the sea. I will put an end to your noisy songs, and the music of your harps will be heard no more. Now listen to it. I will make you a bare rock, and you will become a place to spread fish nets. You will never be rebuilt, for I, the Lord, have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. I went there to check it out. Let me tell you what happened. A number of years after the prophecy was given, Nebuchadnezzar, the great king of Babylon, came against this city. He surrounded it. He destroyed it. He ravaged the city. And then he left it. Who would be crazy enough to throw a city into the ocean, I ask you? Well, I'll tell you. 2.5 centuries later, the coming of the soldiers of Alexander the Great sent a thrill of terror through the hearts of the inhabitants of Tyre. Alexander marched against his foe. But the inhabitants had left old Tyre and they'd gone out here to an island and they had built a new city out in the midst of the sea. But the Bible prophet said the city is going to be thrown into the sea. You know what Alexander did? I say it to the skeptic. I say it to the atheist. I say it to the unbeliever. I say it to the person who says there's no meaning in life. I'll tell you what Alexander did. He took all of the rubble. He took the stones. He took the pillars. He took the houses. And he built a causeway out here. And the causeway went right out to New Tyre. He marched his soldiers out. And there was a bloodbath. If you go there today, you will find that the island has become a part of the mainland. I had an amazing experience there. I went there with an open Bible and hopefully with an open heart. You got to have an open heart if you want to have truth. If you don't have an open heart, You can't discover truth. You can't be a happy person unless you got an open heart. So I went there with an open heart, and I went there with the Bible, and I turned to the prophecy of Ezekiel, and I was standing there on Alexander's Causeway in the midst of the sea. I thought of the prophecy. I said, there's got to be a God. And if there's a God, I know where I came from. I know why I'm here. I know where I'm going. And as I was standing there, sort of amazed, feeling sort of overwhelmed by the evidence, along came some Lebanese fishermen, and they threw their nets out on the rubble to dry them in the midst of the sea. I said, surely there is a God. I say to you, believe not because you feel it. Believe because you can't do anything else but accept the evidence. Now, quickly, because I'm running behind. I always am. I want to take you now very fast. I want to take you to Damascus. Let me see. Yes, I'm going to take you now. Let me take you to Damascus. Many people believe it's the oldest continuously inhabited city on the face of the earth. It's a very wonderful city. Famous cities as far as our Muslim friends are concerned are Mecca, number one, then Medina, then Jerusalem, then Damascus. And these are some scenes around Damascus. This is the great Umayyad Mosque that has room for 6,000 people. They believe that Christ is going to come back there. They believe that in that mosque that you can see there, in that shrine, they have the head of John the Baptist. I'm not so sure, mind you, because I've been to other places where they say they've got the heads of the saints. Have you heard the story, I don't vouch for it, of the tourist who went to Rome and he was shown the heads of St. Peter? One was small, one was large, and the tourist said, how can Peter have two heads? And the guide said, simple, the small head was when he was a boy, and the large head when he grew up. Now, there are some things you can believe, and there are some things you better not believe. Just because churches say it doesn't make it right. This is the minaret of Isus, or the minaret of Jesus. The Muslims believe that Jesus was a great prophet, and they believe that when he comes back, he's going to come back upon this spot. They believe in the second coming of Christ, and they believe he's coming back to destroy the Antichrist. One night I'm going to talk about the Antichrist and show you that he's in the world today. Now, we leave Damascus, take this road up through this beautiful part of the world where they have beautiful farms and fruit, and we go up very quickly up to Tel Mardik, which is where they discovered the city of Ebla. It was discovered by the great Italian archaeologist Paolo Mattei. He discovered the site in 1964. Tel Mardik it is, I tell you. It was a mound and is a mound of 140 acres. In 1968, he found a number of tablets that bore the name Ebla in the ancient Canaanite script. He called over one of his friends from the university in Rome, Giovanni Petronato. And he said this was the old Canaanite script, the forerunner of the Hebrew language. It was a city of 260,000 people, huge. 11,700 civil servants, so the people were taxed. And as Giovanni Petronato was reading this script, he declared that he read the words Sodom and Gomorrah, because the city traded with Jerusalem and Megiddo and Tyre and many, many other cities, and also Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, this has been disputed by a number of scholars. But be that as it may, they believe that this ancient script was the forerunner of the language of the Bible. The Bible came from a culture that was rich and real and sophisticated, not a book written by peasants and simpletons, but a book that contains the distilled wisdom of the ages. Now, Petra. Oh, so much to tell you about Petra. We go down the King's Highway. I hope to go back there again. South of the Dead Sea, the city of Petra. Remember the Port Burgon, the rose-red city, half as old as time itself. It is a desolate, wild, lonely region. And the city was lost for almost 1,000 years. Almost 4,000 years ago, there was a man by the name of Abraham. The Jews consider that he is their father. The Muslims consider that he is their father. And the Christians see him as their spiritual father. Abraham had a wife whose name was Sarah. She was, in the language of those days, barren, unable to have children. That was a cause of disgrace in those days. When Abraham was 100 years of age, and she was a sprightly 90, she became pregnant. They had a baby boy. They called him Isaac, which means he laughs. In fact, everyone was laughing. They said, have you heard about Abraham and Sarah? That he's 100 and she's 90 and she's had a baby boy, Isaac. Isaac, when he grew up, had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. There was bitter rivalry between the 2 boys over the birthright. And after a period of time, Esau leaves home. He becomes the chief of a lawless band. And he comes down to this area, down to Mount Seir. Esau means red. And the Bible says he was a red and hairy man. He must have looked something. He came down here, down to this area, and he came down here to this rocky fortress. And as the years went by, a city grew in this area, which is called Mount Seir. It was lost to the world for almost 1,000 years. Travelers would hear rumors about a city out in the desert. An amazing city. But no European could go there because he would be killed. It was a sacred place. But the rumors kept coming back. There is this lost Atlantis in the desert. The city of the Edomites may be a city of human sacrifice. It was the Bible city of Mount Seir, of Petra. The way into the city is through a narrow seek. which is like a crack in the crust of the earth. I've walked the Sikh many, many times. I understand the movie The Last Crusade was shot there. And as you walk along the Sikh, you see these cliffs on both sides. The road is narrow. And then after the journey, you see light ahead. And then you burst out into a strange valley. You have discovered the home of the Edomites and then the Nabateans. This is the first building you see. It is called El Khazna, or the treasury. The Arabs believe that up the top there was a vast amount of gold stored. It is breathtaking in its beauty. The time to go is early in the morning and catch the rays of the sun as they light up the rose-red buildings. After leaving Al Khazna, one makes one's way down through the valley. And on either side of the valley, there are vast buildings and tombs. When I first went there more than 30 years ago, 35 years ago, it was like walking into a vast cemetery. There was no one there, no tourists. I climbed up the top of the mountain and I went to Ed Deer. They call it, even though it is not, the monastery. There it is. And you can see the people moving at the base of it. It looks as though it was designed for giants. Look at the door. It was not placed there. It was carved. And then one day, I did something that I love to do with my great television crew, the best there is. We climbed up to the high place. I want you to come with me now to the high place. This book, the Bible, talks about high places. We're going to go to the place of sacrifice. The place of sacrifice. And we're going to see the altar. Now, the famous German archaeologist, Dr. Siegfried Horn, who was my teacher, said that he believed that human sacrifices were offered at the site of the altar. It is believed by some that these people who once had a knowledge of a God of love turned away from that knowledge and they became fierce and cruel. And the story is told and believed by some that as the sun would come up in the east, they would take a young girl and they would place her upon the altar. And then the priest of the sun god would take a knife and cut open her chest and remove the beating heart and hold it up to the sun god. And because of this unnatural cruelty, the prophets of the Bible railed against Petra and said, "You will go down and be lost for all eternity." The prophet said these words, and I can quote the words to you. I will stretch out upon Mount Seir the line of confusion. There will be the stones of emptiness. No man will go there, but wild beasts will inhabit the place. When I stood upon the high place with my television crew, I said to myself, it was right again. After several days in the valley, I was hurrying back to civilization. My team had broken up, and some had gone ahead and some were behind. And I was walking by myself and carrying one of our cameras just to prove I could do it. As I walked through Petra, the sun went down, and I was alone, and alone with my thoughts. The stars came out, and then I entered the Sikh, and all was dark. I hurried along, stumbling sometimes, and I thought to myself, 1,000 thoughts were coursing through this mind. The Bible was right about the Pharaohs. It was right about Egypt. It was right about Tyre, the city under the sea. It was right about Nineveh. It was right about these ancient kings. It was right about Petra. Every word came to pass. When Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, rode into Jerusalem, the people were shouting and praising. And the religious leaders said to him, "Master, rebuke your disciples." And Jesus said, "If they remain silent, even the very stones will cry out." Listen, the stones are crying out. Listen carefully. Can you hear them? The stones of Nineveh, the stones of Tyre, the stones of Karnak, the stones of Egypt, the stones of Petra. And the message of the stones is this: it is true. And if it is true, it's the best news you've ever heard. Because the message is, there's a God who made you, who loves you, who cares for you. And no day will ever be the same again. But every day will be full of hope and courage and meaning, because you'll know where you came from and why you're here and where you're going. With your permission, I'd like to have a prayer with you and ask God to bless you. Would you bow your heads with me? Great God and Creator of the universe, the Creator of our hearts and our souls, tonight we have seen overwhelming evidence to show that there is a God, that the Bible is true. And if this is true, it's the best news we've ever heard, because it tells us tonight we came from the hand of God. We are not animals. We are not machines. But there's a purpose for every person here tonight. And every man, woman, boy, and girl is distinct and glorious and special. Breathe into our hearts tonight your peace and your joy. And we pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.